Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig into complex stories to pull out the insights that really matter. And today we're tackling something pretty heavy, it's haunting, and really deeply American: the long, brutal conflict between the Crips and Bloods in South Los Angeles. Just to give you a sense of the scale here, we're talking a 40-year feud. It's claimed, tragically, 5 times more lives than the conflict in Northern Ireland. Think about this number. Over 15,000 gang-related deaths just in LA County in only 20 years. That number alone should really make you pause. And what's so jarring, really, is the location. This intense, violent war unfolds just miles from the Pacific Coast Highway, Beverly Hills glamour, Hollywood and Vine, even Disneyland. It's such a stark contrast, a paradox almost. It really demands understanding. So our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack how this seemingly endless war actually started. We're not just looking at what happened, but digging into the why. Why did these specific communities become battlegrounds? We'll trace the history, the social factors, the economics that shaped it all, and we'll hear from people right at the heart of it, voices from the early days right up to now.
Yeah, and to really get it, you have to go back to the 1950s. Think about South LA then. Young black men, guys like Ron, Bird, Kamasi, they are just looking for their slice of the American dream like anyone else. Post-war prosperity was supposed to be for everyone, right? But well, there was this immediate sharp realization for them, a kind of aha moment, but not a good one. Despite all the talk about opportunity, they were just shut out, systematically denied basic things. There's this one really powerful story from a source trying to join the Boy Scouts. And the scoutmaster just straight up told him some of the parents might object because it was a white troop. Just like that. Not subtle at all. A brick wall.
Wow, the Boy Scouts, something meant to build character, community.
Exactly. So when you're excluded from things like that, these mainstream activities, it leaves a huge gap, right? A void. So naturally, teenagers started forming their own things. Street front fraternities, they call them. Names like the Businessmen, the Gladiators, the Slossons. And this is really, really important. They didn't call themselves gangs. That came later from police, from the media.
Right, that was an external label.
Totally. They saw themselves as clubs, providing, what they couldn't find anywhere else. Family, acceptance, status, a sense of identity. And those early rivalries, they're mostly, believe it or not, competitive, about proving yourself physically. Whoopin', they called it. One guy we looked at, remember boasting, like, I will beat your hairline all the way back to the center of your head.
So more about dominance, reputation.
Yeah, not destruction. It was a world away from the lethal violence that came later.
Okay, so exclusion starts it, creating this need to belong. But it wasn't just being left out, was it? It was actively enforced. This next part really highlights how the authorities, how they responded. Chief William Parker, LAPD, 1950 to 66. Under him, the department basically acted like an occupying military force. Young black men weren't citizens to protect. They were seen as enemies.
Enemies to be controlled.
Yeah.
And segregation was actively maintained. There was this open secret, basically, Alameda Boulevard. It acted as an invisible line, a white curtain. And the police enforced it, keeping black residents out of white areas like Linwood, Southgate.
Just constant pressure.
The psychological wear, it was immense. Daily police stops, always asking where you're going. It was a constant message. You don't belong here, you're inferior. One man talks about being stopped, asks what a robber looks like. The other just says, looks just like you.
Devastating.
Absolutely. It wasn't just physical control. It created this cultural disorientation. A deep-seated self-hatred, as one person put it, like getting a spoonful of hatred every day. It just built and built. You could feel something had to give.
Leading to that question, when is this going to erupt and upon whom? An explosion waiting to happen.
And it did erupt. Big time. The Watts Rebellion was that first major explosion. August 11th, 1965. Around 7 p.m., it starts with a traffic stop. Marquette Fry, 21 years old, pulled over by CHP, suspected DUI. His home is like less than 2 blocks away, but they insist on impounding the car. His mom, Raina, owns the car. She shows up. The crowd starts gathering. Quickly, people are already tense about policing. Then a scuffle breaks out. It escalates. Fry, his mom, his brother, they're all arrested.
And the community reaction.
Well, the crowd kept growing over the next 24 hours. There was this community meeting the next day, and you saw 2 completely different viewpoints clash. You had elders saying, we must stay off the streets, calling for nonviolence. Many had come from the South, seen worse, maybe saw LA as, an improvement despite everything.
Got the younger generation.
Yeah, a young voice just cut right through that, defiant. Said something like, it's going to be another one whether you like it or not. Total frustration. It showed this huge generational split. The youth were like, we ain't going to take shit. You took it. We're not. They just weren't going to put up with it anymore.
And they didn't see it as just a riot.
No, the residents called it guerrilla warfare. That's a really key distinction. They used whatever was around them, dilapidated buildings, rubble, rubbish, as weapons, driven by this feeling that, well, they cannot be hurt because the system had already left them for dead, basically. Already dead.
And the official response?
Overwhelming. Brutal. 16,000 National Guard troops deployed. The area became a free fire zone. People shot in the back for, quote, trivial offenses, like looting a single bottle of beer. This whole event, it really unmasked this country, as our sources put it. A lot of people were shocked, thought, oh, couldn't happen here in LA. It was different from earlier race riots where white mobs attacked black areas. This was an uprising against the system in their own neighborhood.
What surprised me, though, reading the research, was what happened after Watts, this period of hope.
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? But from about 65 to 71, gang activity actually hit an all-time low.
Really? Why?
Well, that post-rebellion energy, it got channeled somewhere else. Young people, even former street fighters like Kumasi, Bird, Ron, they got involved in organizations like SNCC, the Black Panthers.
So activism instead of street life.
Exactly. They became activists, pouring energy into community programs, free breakfast for kids, neighborhood cleanups, political action, trying to rebuild, create something better.
But that structure, that Black Power movement, it didn't last, did it?
No, it came under direct attack from the government. We know now about J. Edgar Hoover's COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program. It specifically targeted groups like the Black Panthers. Hoover called them the greatest threat to the internal security of the country.
And the impact was devastating.
Swift and brutal. Key leaders, Bunchy Carter, John Huggins assassinated. Others like Huey Newton, Bobby Seale arrested, jailed. As one source put it, they hunted them down, they murdered everybody that they could, to systematically dismantle the leadership.
Creating a vacuum.
A huge vacuum. A leadership void. And into that void, as a source says, a new element rose up called the Crips. This next generation, they were described as born in a state of suspended animation, feeling totally disconnected and disenfranchised, like a planet out of orbit.
No leaders to connect with, no movements.
Right. The very groups that had offered identity and purpose were destroyed, leaving this desperate emptiness. And it's critical to see how fast that vacuum got filled and how the whole game changed from those earlier street front fraternities. Late 60s, Raymond Washington starts the Crips on the Fremont High School playground. Then, rival groups need to band together for defense, for identity. They formed an alliance, and they took the name Bloods. It's the name black soldiers were using in Vietnam, which kind of hints at the intensity to come.
So this wasn't just competition anymore?
No, this was a massive shift from that whooping stuff to something lethal. The mindset became, it's all about you taking them out.
Yeah.
And tragically, Raymond Washington himself, the founder of the Crips, was shot and killed. That event really cemented the shift to deadly violence.
And today, that legacy continues.
It does. These communities are now home to, as our sources say, 5 generations of urban soldiers, grown up in this dangerous grid of rival territories, where just asking where you from can literally get you killed if you're on the wrong block.
Everyday life must be terrifying.
It's a constant state of alert. Simple things, getting gas, going to Burger King, become high risk because you might accidentally cross into enemy turf. The mental toll is huge. This mindset of don't get caught slipping, never relax, always watching your back. And respect. Often, respect just means fear. You better respect me. You better fear me. You got to be on your toes at all times.
Which begs the question, why join in that environment?
Well, the pull is incredibly strong because it offers what society doesn't. You join for protection, right, from rivals, for love, unity, a sense of family, especially if your own home life is fractured, for identity when everything else tells you you're nobody.
So it feels like a choice between
victim or victor. When you feel constantly under attack, disregarded, it seems like the only way to have some control, some power.
And once you're in?
The cycle just grabs hold. There's this intense obligation to retaliate if someone in your family, your set, gets hurt or killed. When someone you care about is gone, your heart is broken. And the response is, got to make them feel where you feel. It becomes this dog-eat-dog war. And individuals feel forced to make this awful moral compromise. Like one person said, I got to put that moral state of mind behind me and become an animal.
Because the alternative
is weakness. And soft motherfuckers don't eat. That's the brutal reality they feel trapped in.
It's just gut-wrenching. And layered on top of all that is the economic reality, pushing people towards these choices.
Absolutely. You have to connect the dots back to the economy.
Think about the Great Migration, right? Before WWII, most Black Americans were in the rural South under Jim Crow. Then, 40s to 70s, millions moved north and west. LA seemed like a land of opportunity. Industrial jobs, GM, Chrysler, Ford, Goodyear.
Yeah, real jobs, union jobs sometimes. It allowed people to build a life, a lower middle class life, buy homes, cars. Central Avenue became like Harlem West. Jazz clubs, Black-owned businesses, a real sense of progress.
But then, the bottom dropped out. Deindustrialization.
Yeah, late 50s, 60s, those same factories start closing down, moving away. It just tore a gaping hole in the economy, especially South LA. It wasn't just losing jobs, it was losing the pathway to the middle class that had just opened up for Black Angelenos.
Families who'd just bought homes, suddenly adrift.
Completely adrift, a total sense of abandonment. It led to this awful reverse American dream where kids started doing worse than their parents. Their skills, the industrial skills, they didn't fit the new economy, high tech here, low skill service there.
Yeah.
Huge mismatch.
And then crack cocaine arrives.
Right, 1981. That was like pouring gasoline on the fire. A hugely destructive force. It was breaking up a lot of homes, as the sources say. And for people trapped in poverty with no other options in sight.
It looked like a way out.
Deceptively, yeah. It seemed like the way out. People had no idea the devastation it would ultimately cause. And the way those economic pressures just smashed into family structures, it created another crisis. Our sources describe these really dysfunctional family situations. Father's absent, like one guy says, his dad was gone since '93. Mother's struggling with addiction. One kid remembering selling weed for my mom. Just desperation.
Leaving kids unsupervised.
Yeah, finding their supervision outside the home, which often meant, the streets, the games we've been talking about. And this created a massive void, particularly around manhood. Young men growing up with no positive male role models, they get taught wrong, as one source puts it, thinking that fighting or shooting is what makes you a man.
Wow.
One guy said something really profound. I didn't become a man until I was 38 years old, because that's when he finally met someone who showed him a different way. And this whole situation feeds directly into what's been called the new cotton field, mass incarceration.
The statistics are shocking.
Unbelievable. A 2003 report found 28%, nearly 1 in 3 African-American men would be jailed or imprisoned in their lifetime, a rate 6 or 7 times higher than before.
Yay.
It's the systematic removal of men from families, from communities, leaving an even bigger hole.
And it creates this cycle, right? Hard to break out of.
A brutal cycle of recidivism. Guys get out, maybe for nonviolent stuff, but face huge barriers getting work. One man lost a good job at Xerox just because they found out he was on parole. So what happens? Often they're forced back into crime just to survive, to keep their family from starving.
So when the system talks about a war on crime...
From inside the community, it feels very different. As one person put it, starkly. When America says there's a war on crime, that's a war on Black people. They see the root problems as no work and dysfunctional schools, not bad kids. It feels like a war on them.
And any promises to fix things, to heal, often broken, which just deepens the mistrust, history repeating itself. April 29th, 1992, just 27 years after Watts, 5 miles away, the verdict in the Rodney King trial comes down. And LA erupts again. The message felt loud and clear: the system does not deliver justice.
Another massive betrayal of hope.
Yeah.
And in the aftermath, another flicker of optimism. This big private sector thing, Rebuild LA, gets formed. Promises $6 billion, 74,000 jobs in the riot zone over 5 years. Huge promises. And at the same time, incredibly, there's a tentative Crips and Bloods peace treaty. A huge effort from inside the community.
But Rebuild LA?
Yeah. That's the heartbreaking part. Just quietly folded after a year. Delivered almost nothing. Leaving neighborhoods still in ruin. And teaching a whole new generation that it was just another foregone promise of the man.
And the peace treaty?
Without any real support, no economic change, it fell apart. And the gang war just raged on, unchecked for another 15 years. The psychological damage, it's immense. Studies show kids in South LA with higher PTSD rates than kids in Baghdad.
Baghdad, that's almost unbelievable.
It speaks to this constant, inescapable trauma. It shapes everything. How brains develop, relationships, community. A silent war on the kids.
But you said, despite all this darkness, there's some hope now, coming from within.
Yes. It's small, maybe, but it's real. Our sources talk about a new sort of gang, which is a fascinating way to put it. These are former gang members, people who are in the life, now working as peacemakers.
Peacemakers.
Literally putting their lives on the line, intervening in disputes, stepping between groups to stop violence before it happens, day in, day out. And what's striking is these are mostly grassroots groups, privately funded, very little state or federal help, trying to break the cycle from the ground up.
Just individuals deciding to change things.
Exactly. And we heard these powerful stories of personal change. One former member talks about his son questioning his drug dealing. It made him choose. He decided to stick with my kids instead of the gang. Became a coach, a role model. He even talked about how changing his mindset, even just how he dressed, increased my freedom. He could move around more safely, wasn't seen as a target.
Wow. Small changes, big impact.
It boils down to something simple but profound that came through again and again. The need to care about people and to love them. To see them as human beings, not just gang members, not just statistics. That shift from judgment to empathy, that seems to be where the real hope lies.
That really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? A provocative idea. When we look at these individuals caught in this cycle, often just labeled criminals, written off, they have a stamp under their shirt that says, Made America.
Yeah, they weren't imported.
They were forged right here, in the wealthiest nation on earth, a democracy proud of its opportunities. It forces you to ask, what does it mean when our society produces these conditions? When a generation feels born in a state of suspended animation, totally disconnected and disenfranchised?
It's a hard question.
It is. Our sources hit us with this challenge about our collective responsibility. Quote, "We are a democracy, the richest country on earth. It is absolutely outrageous and inexcusable that we have failed to meet the most elementary tests of what it means to be fellow citizens and build a community." So, the final thought for you, listening, what does this all mean? It's an invitation, really, to think about your own role in understanding, maybe even addressing, these deep problems that are truly made in America.